This is Learning to Dad
I'm the cool dad. That's my thing.
with Tyler Ross.
What I do have are a very particular set of skills.
I'm gonna have fun, and you're gonna have fun.
Hi there and welcome to Learning to Dad. I'm with Thomas Benjamin, my man who last time we talked had not had a baby yet, and some of the things he said were hilarious.
Oh, I was so young and naive.
So
back
young. And now that you've been exposed to the real world, what it's like to be a parent and a spouse to a mother and all of these things, we get to really wrap. So I'm glad to talk to you, man. It's good to see you.
Good to see you as well. Thanks for, you and I have not really talked at length other than the usual text threads that we're on. So it'll be nice to actually have a full catch up. If it's interesting to the masses, that's it's an inside joke between me and Tyler.
So many people have downloaded.
Well, it's TBD if anyone cares, but I'm happy to talk to you. Whatever opportunity I have to catch up with you, it's like, it's found money at this point.
And it's so cool that we get to actually see each other. For those listening, where we'll be uploaded on YouTube as well, where you can actually see what Tommy looks like, how he moves, how he looks, the way he dresses, the way he keeps his hair.
Right, this coif right now. Yeah.
Darker than usual.
Might be the lighting. I don't know. I also don't go outside anymore. I basically, when you have an infant, like you're basically act like the sun is like, your vampire enemy. So we don't go outside. We don't go outside. I'm up at very odd hours. I'm a vampire. That's exactly right. I'm up at night.
Vampire crossed with a Navy SEAL, crossed with, what was it, Christian Bale in The Machinist or whatever. He was all skinny and gnarly looking. I forget.
He looked like he needed to eat some food in that one.
Yeah, he did. Well, so like, how's Boo Boo? How's your wife? How's baby mama?
She's good. She's on maternity leave. I'm back at work, so she's been very much taking the lead on like the nighttime feeds. Those like 2, 3, 4 a.m. feeds are like just the worst ever. There's something about that time period. Even if you're only up for an hour, like you're like wiped the next day. And so she's been really great about letting me, maybe do the 10 p.m. or even the midnight, and then like the 6 or 7 a.m. and staying away from that like danger zone time. Cause like, I don't know if it's just me or what, but I just can't recover like the next day after that happens. And so if I'm back at work, so if I have meetings or whatnot, it's like super awesome that she like lets me actually have like a straight 6 hours or whatever and be functional.
That's a big deal. That's a big deal. How long have you been able to, what's the sleeping pattern been like over the last, well, let's talk about how old your daughter is first. How old is she?
7 weeks yesterday.
So how's the sleep trajectory been managed over 7 weeks? Pretty consistent so far? None?
Not really. None. Yeah, she's a mess. She's like, she sleeps at odd hours. Like, I don't know. It's interesting too. And that's what's so funny as well. Like, Annalise is reading all these books, like 12 hours a night by 12 weeks, like all these books. And it's like, we have her on a schedule. It's like every 3 hours, like 4, 7, 10. Like her big sleep is like at 7. It goes for now 4 or 5 hours, which is really great. But every sleep after that is consistently like shorter, less quality, and is like more terrorizing to us. So it's interesting because like you read these books and you're like, oh, baby at 5 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever, should be having 18 to 20 hours of sleep or whatever the number is. It's a high number. We're like half that, if that, and it's pieced together like piecemeal, like 30 seconds here, 25 here, and they're not like sleeps where I can like go do something. It's like she'll only like sleep if I'm holding her, or it's always inconvenient, and I feel like she knows it. She's really messing with me already.
As far as I can tell, having a 5-year-old girl or almost 5-year-old girl, that's just what they do.
Just they annoy you with their sleep patterns, or just in general?
No, it's just to find the most inconvenient way to express themselves or do something or ask something. And that's part of the challenge of being a parent. So tell me the best, worst advice you've gotten from every parent who has something to say about, well, here's how we got our kid to sleep really great.
Oh, yeah. Everyone wants to like give you like, their plan and what happened for them. And I think that there are some consistencies there in terms of like, oh, if you do this and you make it happen, or they just lucked out. And, it's proof when they have 2 or 3 kids that are all sleeping the exact same way, like great. But I mean, this kid will not, just doesn't want to sleep. I don't know what I could do differently. We, jam her with, as much, formula / boob as we can put in her, but then like she's spitting up and then she's like pooping. That's the thing. You get her in that good routine and then she gets herself and then it's like another hour. So you get her down. You got like the sound machine's my new best friend, by the way. I didn't know what I did before it. I also don't know what I did before, like we had a baby, because all he was talking about this baby now. Like I don't know how to fill the void of talking without talking about my baby and bowel movements and all sorts of stuff. It's very strange. This whole fraternity and sorority of parenting, it's very strange. And to that point, it's I look back on our previous conversation, is actually very interesting, because I don't know, you were asking me a lot of questions that like, it was actually kind of funny because like I had no business answering in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it's fun.
and it was like something that was, you don't know until you know. And I thought that was interesting because you were kind of like, you weren't really giving that much advice. You're just like, what do you think this is going to happen? And then, so to me, it was like it would be the perfect, post-mortem to actually talk about like the pre and the post, because I literally had no idea. I think back to our conversation with when Steven kind of crashed the podcast at the end and we were talking about how many diapers you
yeah, how many? What'd you say? Five? Four,
like a normal human with like a good fiber intake has about 3 good ones. So I was like, that makes sense, because babies, and then thinking about the fact that like, last night, it's 3 a.m. By the way, our air conditioning went out, so it's like hot in the house. Baby runs hot anyway, so she's like literally just in a diaper, but she's still like sweltering. So I take her to the changing pad and like I change her, and then without fail, I don't know if this happens to every kid, I just have the one, but like the second you start changing her, it's like she basically poops for 15 minutes, which is the whole thing. It's like you think she's done, and I've even like waited. I'm always like standard 15 minutes, at least like 3 are really like crazy toots going on, and then I'm like, okay, I think she's good. But she just knows when she's being changed, and again, probably because her legs are up and that whatever whatever position that is, the coccyx or whatever, she ends up going again. And so it was a comedy of errors last night where she like, I change her, I know some more's coming, so like I block it, and it's not coming, so I take it off, and then it like explodes all over me. And by the way, it's like the pressure down there in an infant is like a jet engine. I don't understand any of it, but physics aside, then it's like, then she starts peeing on me, so I have to pick her up, and so she's naked and then she's still peeing, and then everything's ruined, and I'm just like, why did I do this? Like, and why did no one warn me about how terrible this whole thing is? But again, and I think that's another conversation Annalisa and I have been having about the whole thing, where when the baby comes out, she's obviously very cute, and Annalisa had a C-section. It was actually like a very terrible labor story. She's a perfect C-section baby, and she's so cute and whatever, but again, like she's not really giving back at all, and she hasn't given back. She hasn't pulled her weight at all in the last 6 weeks. So, but about, last week when we were really just kind of done with her, wanted to give her back, I mean, she started, smiling. And so, I mean, that's going to get me through at least another month, at which point I'm sure she's going to do something else. But the funny thing is, like, when she's quiet or sleeping or just sitting there, she's the cutest thing in the world. And then like, she goes from like amazing to like terror, like what is wrong with this being, in like 2 seconds. And again, it's usually our fault. It's bottles not being made fast enough, or there's a burp that we didn't correct for. But other than that, it's like, it's a lot. That kid's a lot, man. She's very cute again, but I mean, it's that thing where it's like, I can't believe that there are billions of people on this earth, and that everyone had the same, everyone has a birth story, and we had like this crazy, very personal experience that you've had, more than once. Your sister had a crazy experience. It's just so personal, but also, we're at the hospital, and like they do this like 20 times a day, and they like don't even like that doesn't, it's just so interesting, because again, like you're bringing this new thing into the world, and it's so crazy, and such a crazy experience, and it was awesome / like very scary. But at the end of the day, it's like, I don't know, it's just funny. Like, no, and again, like there are podcasts dedicated to this, there are books written about it, there's billions of dollars spent on this whole baby industrial complex.
It's an industry. Yeah.
It's an industry, but it also feels like so personal when it's like not. And I don't know, I just feel like no one told me about this, but I'm like, maybe I wasn't listening, or I don't know. It's just, it's been bringing up a whole lot of stuff. Obviously we're very much in the thick of it in the first 6-7 weeks, so we're learning as we going. Baby's not dead yet, which I'm very good job to me, because again, when they even let us leave the hospital, I was like, wait, you're trusting this thing to me? I'm responsible now? Very scary.
Well, one of my favorite things is people that say, you know, having a baby is just like having a puppy. So, having raised a puppy, why don't you tell me a little bit about the differences between raising a puppy and raising an infant?
What's awesome is Jordan, our German Shepherd, is like 13 years old now, and like literally like just looks at us and looks at this baby and it's like, what is going on here? She's super nice, and like we have pictures of her like. She's always in the room. She likes to be like that typical German Shepherd way, like likes to be in the mix, but like doesn't like to be like touched or really like paid that much attention to. So it's like a perfect situation because we have literally no attention to give the dog anymore. But she like, you know, every now and then she's like, when baby's screaming at 3 a.m. and she just kind of like turns over and like looks at us. And she's like, what did you guys do? We had a really good thing going here.
Which one of you assholes is going to go make that baby shut up?
Yeah. Do I need to do it? Do I need to do it? I will. Just
I got paws and jaws. One of you guys is going to want to do it
real quick. No, but I mean, you know, again, like I had Jordan when I was in college and was very ill-equipped for that. So I think there's the similar trajectory there. It's like you're wholly unprepared. You're completely out of your element. You know, you know, there's always much more, you know, messes than you think there will be. But again, like I think you kind of can figure it out a little bit faster with the dog. And then this baby, you know, and conversations I'm having, like my sister came down this past weekend. She's got, you know, a 5-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 11-month-old. And I mean, I think, you know, I don't know what age she would prefer at this point. Like they're, you know, as they get older, they're more self-sufficient, but they're also much more complicated. But this 5-year-old of hers is like asking a lot of crazy questions and doing a lot of weird things. And you're like, well, when does it end? And like, then you have conversations with like my mom, and she's like, it doesnthis like, I'm still like, I still have all of you kids out in the world that I, you know, I'm terrified for. And, you know, I'm so vulnerable because all these things that I love are out there. It's like, oh, okay. It's just a reminder that you'd never get off this train. Right. And it's something very new to us, but it's also a reminder. It's like, wow, this baby's going to be in every family photo for the rest of my life. You know, it's awesome and scary and very cool all at the same time. Yeah. / depressing when all you want to do is sleep and the baby's like, hey, you know, no, that's not going to happen today. Mm-mm.
Dude, my beard was falling out. Of course, you remember Sarah was she was on bed rest and
right.
You know, baby, puppy, 2 mortgages, blah, and just like the anxiety level just gets ramped up with babies. Yeah. It's like hair starts falling out. You eat like shit. Probably drink too much. Like you're probably getting no exercise. You going and getting a run in or anything?
Well, Annalise is very much focused on getting her pre-baby body back. So
it seemed like she got too far. It's like she was all belly. I don't remember her getting any.
No, yeah, not at all. But again, she like, you know, is a crazy like worker outer, and so was always like, that's the thing. Like she was always like, you know, every time we had appointments, the doctor was like, you're gaining too much weight. You're only supposed to be gaining 20 pounds this week and you're at 24. And it was like, yeah, but Annalise to me was always like super in shape and underweight. And I'm sure most people that go into that place are like not in that space. So I was like, don't listen to what the doctor says anymore. Just do it. Anyways, that's an aside.
That's a big piece of advice to give people. Don't listen to what the doctor says.
I'm telling you, after our experience, it's like doctors don't know them.
I'm with you. They're all dumb as shit, just like the rest of us.
They're like, oh, sorry about that. You know, exactly. It's once that curtain is pulled, you're like, oh, okay.
They're the same distance from chimpanzees as we are.
That's not untrue. Yeah, but no, we did buy a Peloton bike, which is, you know, that home spinning bike. With
hey, you like it?
I do. I'm very LA in that way where like Annalisa introduced me to cycling a long time ago and I've always enjoyed it. So having one in the garage is kind of cool because you literally have no excuse other than, you know, give me half an hour or 45 minutes to go do this thing. It's a little like, you know, woo woo, but I mean, it's fine. I mean, I used to be a big runner. I've done marathons and stuff, but to me, I can't get my head around anymore. I'd rather just have someone yell at me for 45 minutes to do something.
Yeah, that's why you got married, isn't
it? Only 45 minutes? What?
I have a kid too now, so you're gonna have a daughter that gets to yell at you also.
That's screaming at this point. It's not yelling.
Yeah. How's that going? Is she loud? Is she quiet?
It's really interesting. She's very, I don't know if introspective is the right word. She's very much and again, I don't have that much to compare it with, but even, my mom who's had 5 kids and has a bunch of nieces and nephews, is like, this is the calmest baby I've seen. So when she's like in her Zen mode, she literally just like wants to be held and like stare at the ceiling and like, I don't know. She's an infant. I'm not trying to give her too much like, props for like being like some genius or something, because she's not, but she's also like, it's the way you see her like looking at stuff. It's like very much like taking it all in. Yeah. And that's even, when Annalisa had the C-section, she wasn't responding to the pain medicine, so they ended up knocking her out with ketamine. So Annalisa was basically the first 3 hours of baby's life, Annalisa was passed out basically. So it was like me and the baby, which was a very unique experience to have as the father,
Totally,
and very sad too, because it was not what we wanted at all. We wanted baby to be on her chest and do all that fun stuff. But anyways, even then, like, we're in the operating room with these bright lights, and like, she was just like, the way she was like looking at stuff, I was like, she's like really thinking about this stuff, or she's like being in the moment. And I noted that then, and like, it's been very true ever since. Like, she's just very much like thinking about stuff. And so in that way, I'm like, okay, that's going to be a ponderous kind of maybe introverted, introspective kind of kid, which is the nice part. And then the other part is like, she's like angry, dude. She's like so angry.
Well, she's got a short list of things to like unwind the anger. Like,
I mean, she does
hungry or tired.
She's like, where the fuck is my fucking food?
Where's my damn tip?
Give it.
Give me one of those things.
And it's just like, but you're not hungry. She's like, I don't care if I'm not hungry. I like it in my mouth.
Hey, let's have some parent talk here. Like latching, like we talk about poop, latching, and sleeping, and maybe we can get into your sex life too. We can get real detail oriented for the masses. The masses will want to hear about that. So she little girl latch okay?
She latched fine. The problem was Annalisa had a 36-hour labor and a C-section and 2 epidurals because neither took. And then, like, basically there's a list of like things that make your milk come in late, and it was like check. So her milk came in super late. Plus, hereditarily, her like grandmother's milk never came in, her mom's came in late. So it was like baby was like hungry for like the first 5 days until we figured it out, and then we got some formula for her, which like solved so many problems. Maybe the first 4 days. So, but the latching was fine. She just was like pissed because she was like there's nothing here. So she was like not into it at all. She was not happy. But that was all good, and she like slept like pretty well there for a while, or as much as you would expect. But once we left the hospital, she's like not the best sleeper. She's not that into it. There's too much life to be lived, I think.
Dude, so I've heard somebody say that once you have a kid, which your daughter's just like in awe at everything. She saw the inside of a belly for however long, and now like everything is awesome. Right. So like I've been told that, and I believe that having kids, like you get to experience the same experience in a new way, like through your kids' eyes. Yeah. You have new appreciation for the same shit you've been walking by your whole life.
Yeah, and I think, and I've heard that too, maybe on this podcast, but I think I think the gift of children is the fact that I get to re-experience everything all over again, kind of through her in a lot of ways. And there's stuff that like we're such nerds when it comes down to it. If you think about it, it's like, I don't know. I'm just thinking about stuff. I'm like, she's going to think that's so cool. And it's like something that's not cool at all. But like, I'm like, I'm going to make sure I'm going to point at that like orange to her and make sure she sees it, because isn't that so colorful and cool? And it's like, it's so lame.
Just like you, Dad.
And like the other day, and don't judge me too much, but we were playing some sort of playlist on Spotify, and like Jack Johnson came on, and I just thought about it in my head. I was like, she's never heard Jack Johnson before. I was like, her life has now changed forever, because now is not living in a non Jack Johnson world.
Everything's different.
For better or worse. By the way,
wait till she gets to Dave Matthews.
I know, right? Yeah, exactly. Oh my God, just all my high school playlists.
Right. Oh God, who was I with? They were listening to a classic rock station. It was classic rock station. It was a song that came out while we were in high school.
Don't tell me that. Oh.
I wish I could remember what it was. Anyway, I saw somebody yesterday that went to a Rob Thomas concert. It's like, no shit.
Why? Why would they do that? I'm just kidding. There's some good Matchbox 20 songs. Right?
I'll never forget. Dudley told me one day. I forget which Matchbox. It might have been a Rob Thomas song when he did his solo thing. He was like, "Dude, if you know the words to this song, every girl's gonna like you."
It's like Trey Meet Virginia or something like that. It's like there are these songs that matter to people. 100%.
Might have been unwell.
Yeah, I'm not crazy. I'm just a little unwell. Totally.
Yeah. We're crazy. So tell me how the dynamic between you and Annalisa's shifted or pivoted since baby.
Again, it was kind of interesting because I was very much, because she had a C-section, because she was kind of so the recovery of that was so tough. It was interesting because I was very much like front and center with baby. Like I knew baby better than she did in a weird way, and like I was the one changing her and I was the one doing all this stuff. So like it was weird because like it's not usually that way. And so that as horrible as it was, I think that was maybe one of the secretly beneficial things to me, where it's like, okay, well, I think the silver lining for me is that at least I got this really unique bonding situation with my infant daughter.
Cool.
But then, now in terms of, I don't know, we communicate, but like, that's the thing. It's like, I'd heard at some point, maybe it was from you again, but it was like, never, not never fight between 10 and 6 a.m., but like basically don't take anything seriously what you say to each other between 10 and 6 a.m. And that's part of it. Like if I'm tired, like I will lash out. And also, by the way,
grumpy when you're tired. You get super grumpy.
I need sleep, and I know that about myself, and so that's why I've lived a life of like prioritizing sleep, and now it's like not allowed. And God, what did we do? I love Sawyer. I love Sawyer June. I'm just kidding, but it's been very frustrating because sometimes all you do is sleep. And then at night, like when she does go down at 7, like a sane person would be like, let's go to sleep too. But then you really need that unwinding time. It's the only bonding time Annalisa and I had together. Mm-hmm. So we make the most of it. But then at the same time, like the next morning, I'm like, we should have gone to bed at 7. And then, it happens again where it's like, it's tomorrow me, we'll deal with that. And then I keep pushing it down the lane. It's like, it's fine. I'll catch up. And we don't catch up anymore. You can't catch up anymore. That's the problem.
Yeah. It's wild. I just realized you have a whiteboard behind you, and we're going to have you draw a diagram of some sort before we're done. It's just too blank, and there are markers there. We'll find an excuse.
I had to clear it recently. I had all of our like development stuff on it, and I don't know. The writers that I was meeting with were getting a little too inquisitive about everything that's going on. So I was like, I gotta clear this one out. Yeah, I'll draw whatever you want. I don't know if you can see in the corner, there's a little Eiffel Tower that represents a 1920s Paris project that we did a while ago that I still will never give up on. But that's probably I'm not artistic really when it comes to drawing, and I think that's like a damn good Eiffel Tower, so I just kept it. Yeah,
I can't see it very well, but from here, you could have told me it was a sticker or a painting or drawing. Looks good.
It's a chair. I drew a chair. Anyways, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
No one cares, Tommy. No one cares.
So tell me something else that's different than it was 7 weeks ago.
In terms of our dynamic, yeah, I mean, I think, it's interesting. I think Annalisa definitely has turned into a mama bear in a lot of ways. I don't know if you ever think of this. This is maybe very narcissistic to think of, but I was telling her this the other day, and I don't think it really came across correctly, but the idea crossed my mind that, when you think about priorities in your life, I think I was always kind of somewhat made to feel safe by the fact that if Annalisa could basically, there's no one in the world that Annalisa, if they say, okay, Annalisa, Sophie's choice, choose Tommy or choose someone else, she would always choose me. And I always loved that idea, right? Like I'm her person. Mm-hmm. Now this baby's wedged her way in and I don't know anymore. And I put her on the spot the other day and she was like, I choose you. And I'm like, no, you wouldn't. And I wouldn't want her to. For the record, I would not want her to. But at the same time, it's an interesting idea because that's what happens when your world, gets bigger. It's this idea of like, okay, it's not our little unit anymore. It's this other thing who we, don't know anything about, but, have obviously invited very, have opened our home to, we've given a room to. It's only 7 weeks old, and I know Annalisa would jump in front of a train to save her, but not me. And it's frustrating. Not that she wouldn't jump in. Anyways, whatever. Narcissism aside, anyways,
Dude,
That's awesome.
you've opened up an interesting little box here, because so I was re-listening to the Ike Broaddus podcast today, and he said something to the effect of, I wish I could remember it exactly, but like, being a parent is secondary. Being a good parent is secondary to being a good spouse.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that necessarily implies who he would jump in front of a train for, but it's like the dynamic between like how important your relationship is with your wife is so important that you got to make sure that's right before your relationship with your kid is right. Because that's the only way your relationship with your kid is right, or something. So no, but
I think part of that conversation, by the way, it's interesting you say that, because part of like what is going through my mind when I'm thinking that it's not all pure narcissism. It's about the fact that Annalise and I have had many discussions about the way we want to live our lives and have a marriage. And the idea is that like, we are the inner sanctum. It's our relationship that comes first, because everything does come off of that, right? Our relationship informs how we treat our child, and therefore, you know, the immediate family surrounding that, and then the bigger. And again, I mean, the baby shows up, and in my mind, I'm like, oh, okay, so our whole thing's out the window, right? Like,
right, yeah.
Baby's a party. And by the way, she should be right now. She's an infant. It's just funny to me that, and I'm being kind of facetious about the whole thing. I think, you know, we're beyond excited to have this baby here, and I think I choose baby as well. It's just a funny way to think about it, because your life does open up in these weird ways, and I think it speaks to the bigger idea that, like, you know, when kids show up, like, all bets are off. There's so much stuff that I've already like done that I remember like judging other people around doing, like daycare, and like, we're gonna, you know, we want to get into the best daycare. I'm like, who does that? Like, throw the kid anywhere, and like, probably the worst daycare will make them stronger, tougher. They'll probably like be around like different cultures more so than, like, you know, the rich, like kind of white Burbank, you know, daycares, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And then, you know, all of a sudden, you know, like, Annalise is only like 3 months pregnant. We're already like jockeying for daycares, and that's kind of what you have to do in this world. But it's like, what the hell? And it just, again, it all goes out the window when kids are involved. Like, because again, you do want the best for them. And yeah, it's interesting to see. I'm definitely doing a lot of self-judging is what it comes down to. Oh man.
It's probably the only thing keeping you in line.
I think so. Probably the anxiety of raising a good kid, you know, being a good role model, which is, you know, I'm very excited about.
About that, to expand on that, being a good role model, like how self-improvement, you know, and the idea of improving yourself, you know, falls into, you know, parenting.
Yeah, I think, and again, I'm still thinking about these things. I think you're kind of in this safe space where baby doesn't really know what's going on, so I can still curse around her and not feel like a terrible parent. I can still maybe have more screens on than I would, because again, as long as I face her this way, whatever. So yeah, you're kind of in this like beta testing mode where it's like, okay, what do I want to do? What do I want to be? So I think there's a situation in which, yeah, I want to lead by example. I want to be working out more. Like we talked about earlier, like those hours are hard to come by now. But again, like, I think that's the great thing about having a kid too, where you can start incorporating them into things. You know, it's like, maybe with my 20s, I'm hungover, you know, all day Saturday, and I don't leave the house. That's not really an option when you're older. First of all, you're not drinking like you used to, or partying, whatever. But the kid's also a reason to get out of the house and do these cool things. Like, and we already did that. Like, I think in the first week, we already, you know, went with, by the way, it's interesting too. It's a conversation to have about like how your friend group changes almost immediately once you have kids. It's like you're welcomed in across the threshold, like, oh, what will come this way now that you have kids, like you're allowed to hang out.
I would love to have dinner with you at 4 o'clock.
You guys get it. Yeah. I want to have dinner at 4 o'clock.
Let's go to a winery at 11.
We were at there's a brewery in Glendale, and Golden Road, sorry.
Yeah.
And we got there by 1. We had a late start. Again, time management with this baby is like impossible.
Yeah.
And that's something we're very much learning as well. We got there at like 1, and like there had already been like what you could tell was like 2 seatings already of like families. And by the way, there's this whole like culture of people that like, it's a brewery, right? And I remember when I used to go there, like meet up with friends on a weekend and be like, why are all these parents like going to breweries and like drinking around their kids and stuff? So again, that's maybe my own judgment about certain things, but this place is like packed. It's basically Chuck E. Cheese with beer. Like, and again, they have the whole setup where like kids have all these games to play and all this stuff.
Yeah.
But again, it was like people had already come and gone like 5 times over by the time we got there. And like we met my sister there because, you know, they're in town, like, you know, meeting Sawyer and all that fun stuff. And they were totally like in their element and they knew what was going on. And I don't know, we're just like super new to this group. And, you know, everyone's walking their kids around, like the little toddlers, like, oh, pardon us. And there's like stroller central. It's like strollers worse than like Disneyland going on there. And anyways, it was kind of fascinating to see it in action as a participant, as opposed to the other side of it where I was like, these people need to get a life or go somewhere else. Like this is a brewery.
This is for
I'm
cool.
trying to taste my flight right now. What are you doing?
All I hear is this kid screaming about Paw Patrol.
Oh my God, I totally felt so sorry. There was like a girl and a guy who were very clearly on a date next to our table. And like my sister's kids, God love them, are like, I mean, they're a 3-ring circus. They're disasters. And like they're screaming and they're doing all this stuff. Keep in mind, there's like every table has these things. And these two are just trying to like drink a beer and go on a date. And I'm like, you went to the wrong place, homie. Sorry.
Yeah. So you want to have kids?
Yeah, right.
I can't wait to have kids.
That's like where he chose to like let her know that he's a baron or something.
That would be a good time to have that conversation.
Yeah, probably. Maybe that's an off-color joke. I apologize. But if I was to tell someone, I'd be like, yeah, what place would you rather not have kids? Probably a brewery. So anyways, yeah. And again, I think it's our time management is out the window. Again, like my boss has kids and I remember back in the day, I'd be like, you can't make a meeting by 10. Like, what's wrong with you? And now, like, if I get into the office before 11, a miracle happens.
When's the last time you were on time for something?
It comes and goes. I think it's, you know, if there's not a hard in or hard out, like we're like, yeah, we'll be there. And like even meeting with my sister this weekend, like we came like an hour late and they were like, where are you guys? I'm like, it's like getting this whole thing going. And by the way, what kind of the whole, it's just hilarious how much stuff a little infant that size needs to travel with. I mean, and we have like this huge stroller and diaper bag and, oh, what if it, you know, change of clothes in case this happens, and oh, the shawl and like the wind, the sun blocker. It's a whole thing. Like I had no idea. I don't know. We what's funny too is we went to Oakland last week and our air conditioning was on the fritz, so we drove up last weekend and we had this idea in our head that next weekend we were going to go to Oregon and stay at Annalisa's aunt and uncle's place on the Oregon coast, which is this beautiful place. We went to Thanksgiving one year, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
We were like, yeah, we'll drive up there. We'll take the dog. You know, Jordan's old, and maybe this is one of her couple last, you know, kind of summers. So, and then yeah, we did the drive up to Oakland as like a dry run. It's about, you know, maybe a third as far as Oregon, and like halfway through the trip, we were like, staycation. That sounds like a lot less stress on, because that's the thing. I was like, it's gonna take us 3 days to get up there at this point, and then we're gonna have to like stay for a day and then turn around and drive back. And I mean, baby hates the car seat.
Yeah.
She can't stand it. Like it's her nemesis. Anything that's like constraining her. So that's the other thing. Like she gets angry. She does not like being swaddled. Like she needs those hands free so she can do like her crazy, like she's learning like her nervous system now. So she's like got some dance moves.
Yeah, that's an interesting comment. That is both you and your wife have that in you, I think. So she's doubled down.
She's gonna have some moves, I'll tell you that much. But yeah, it's we're just completely late to everything. Everything takes 10 times longer than it should.
Yeah.
It's a whole thing. And again, we're new to it. I'm sure we'll be at a point where maybe you tell me we'll be able to be like, grab that out the house.
Dude, it's there is like a little sweet spot, it feels like, where, you know, it's somewhere between newborn and crawling. Like you're getting used to the newborn, and then the crawling is like a whole game changer. Now you can't leave your house because your house is the only place on the planet that's baby proofed. Everything else is danger at every freaking time. So, but there's that sweet spot where she just sits down, shuts up in her car seat. She's only, you know, 14, 15 pounds, and the sleep is, you know, got a little consistency, but it's a very short sweet spot.
And that's the bigger conversation too. It's like every time we feel like we figured something out, like the dynamic changes, and then you have to solve for that, and then the dynamic changes. And I think to part of the conversation earlier, I think that's what's so interesting about child rearing in general, and that's what it seems like happens. It's like, okay, you're in a groove, maybe you've got like a few good weeks or months or whatever, but then the dynamic changes. You know, and like, yeah, it just seems like kids get, and I can see that in like my nieces and nephews, and even like maybe as I was growing up, like kids get easier in certain ways, but like very much more complicated, and the issues that you're dealing with are so much richer when they're older, and they're these kind of, I mean, clearly sentient beings that have like this whole other thing going on internally. Maybe they don't want to communicate as much, and so I don't know, you're like shooting in the dark. It's like, it's at least now, like it's basically like physical troubleshooting, right? Like, okay, does she need a diaper change? Does she need to be burped? And like, yeah, I mean, I'm so thankful now that like she's not mobile, because like my nephew's mobile, and like that guy just like wants to run and go fuck stuff up at every given turn. And what do you do? Like, I'm not gonna rush the crawling or walking thing at all. I know a lot of people are like, can you walk at this time? I think I'm gonna maybe
push her over. If she stands up, push her over.
Maybe like a misery kind of situation. Like totally just like get those legs, like, you know, no, not true. But child service is gonna call like,
oh God. Yeah, this is gonna come back to haunt you in like
like one of the 5 listeners of this podcast called. Just kidding, Tyler. It's more than that. Love you.
It's like twice that, Tommy.
Anyways, yeah, it's been eye-opening in a lot of ways, I feel. And again, I'm almost embarrassed by the previous, podcast recording we did.
That was fun. I think anyone listening now, stop, go back, listen to Tommy's old one, and then come back and start this one over, so that it looks like we have more than twice as many.
There's one question you asked about, like, I don't even know what the question was. It was something about like, how are you going to like discipline or something like that? And I was like, I'm just like not going to put up with it. And I think that maybe down the line there's a place in which because I do want to be a parent who's reasoning with a child, but you have to get to the point where you can reason with a child. At this point, like at this point I'd be literally screaming at a kid that's screaming, being like, why are you screaming? She'd be like, ah! That's her answer. So anyways, it's just looking back on that one, I'm like, I just wouldn't put up with it. I talked to her and reasoned. Like, no, that maybe. And again, I'm gonna eat this when we kind of come back in 5 years and be like, there's no reasoning with a child at certain aspects. But
dude, I had my son 4, almost 4 in the back every day for the last 2.5 years. For as long as he's been mobile, it's go pee, wash your hands, brush your teeth, or brush your teeth, go pee, wash your hands, every single night for his entire life. And he refused to pee. And I just sitting there trying to be logical with a 3.5-year-old, like, Riley, what'd you do yesterday before you went to bed? You washed your hands, you peed, and you brushed your teeth. So what are you going to do right now? Wash your hands, pee. And it's just like, I did it for, I swear to God, 15 minutes. And he's just crying and yelling and barking at me and refusing to do it. And then Sarah comes in and starts giving me shit about the way I'm trying to do it. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do.
Did he end up peeing? I'm on the edge of my seat.
So she just picked him up, put him on the toilet, and said, go pee. And he peed. Yeah. Made me feel like an ass.
Oh, that's the way to do it too. Interesting.
You can make him go pee and make me feel like an ass in one swoop. Moms are powerful.
What would have happened if he didn't pee? Would he just peed himself later? Or it would just be, why did he have to pee? That seems very
my child. The things you'll learn.
I'm honestly, right now, I'm being a little facetious because feel free to make your kid go to the bathroom whenever you want, Tyler. You
want him to go. You're teaching him how to go to the bathroom without peeing his pants while he's asleep. So like you pee right before you go to bed and then go to sleep. You probably do the same thing because I don't want to wake up in the middle of the night and go pee. So,
I have like, I think the world's tiniest bladder, and like I don't think I have the world's tiniest bladder. I just like to chug water before I go to bed.
Yeah.
I don't know why. So maybe
drinking it all day.
that's true too.
Yeah, I do the same thing, like an idiot, and I got to pee 3 times.
I don't know about you, but I like getting up in the middle of the night, knowing that I can go back to sleep. I mean, it's like shot me in the foot a couple of times where it's like 6:55 and I have to get up at 7. But for the most part, it's like that 3:30 a.m. when I can just be like, oh yeah. Sometimes I milk it. I'm like hanging out. I'm like, I can just go to bed right now if I want.
Just watch an episode, something. No,
Yeah.
dude, if it's after 3 a.m., I'm not going back to sleep.
Yeah, you got sleep issues though, man. It's like, do you like sleep like I like sleep, or it's just something in your body says no, you're up? Are you tired and like you can't go back to sleep, or are you like up? You're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna start my day. This is cool.
No, it's if it's like 3:30 or 4, I can sometimes wake up and just be like jazzed to start the day. Like when you're in the flow of like work's awesome and everything, you're excited about stuff. And yeah, not always.
When you're not deathly depressed, is what you're saying.
when I'm not
Sometimes I like to wake up.
crying my cereal.
Man.
How's work, like working with the little baby at home? You changed, like, what are you doing on a podcast with me right now? You should be at home.
I mean, maybe you want to tell your faithful listeners about how many times we've had to reschedule this thing. We were like originally wanted to do like a month in special like recap, and it's like, oh, 3 months later we finally made it happen. And I have to literally it's been good. Again, Annalisa has been so kind and generous with the fact that she's not working. So she's like, I will take these dead nighttime feeds. But I mean, again, like and my boss has twin 5-year-olds and a 7-month-old. So he's totally been completely awesome about understanding when I have to go home early, or like, come in late, or, have to relieve Annalisa because, she's about to lose it. So it's been very
for other parents now.
Huh?
You have more empathy for other parents now?
Oh, definitely. And especially like, you have those friends that are like, seem like, you're like, what happened to you? Like, you had a kid and you disappeared. And now I'm like, I mean, we're trying to be better than that.
Well, now you can judge non-parents very effectively and with gusto.
Yeah, no, because I mean, and that's the thing. Like, there are people that are like, no, we have to stick to the schedule, and I totally appreciate sticking to the schedule. But I think at this point, it's like, because we have a kid, we at least have a little bit more authority to be like, well, you could make it work. You know what I mean? Or it's not like the end of the world if baby, goes down half an hour later. And so, again, I think it's about prioritizing things correctly but yeah, I completely have, I will give those people much more of a pass than I did before I was like, just like bring your kid, and that's just not how it works. You do pay for that, the whole night, like if Sawyer's off her rhythm for sure. But I think I can at least, that's the thing. It's like, once and you can at least speak with a little more authority, even if you still don't know what they're going through. And that's the thing. I think there's the empathy of like, every baby's different. Everyone's experience is different. Some people, that's a very stressful thing to think about, going and meeting people out or having your kid out. And some people want to be at home, and I think that should be totally fine too.
I would like to talk to you about your change in dynamic with Annalisa, your wife, because having a baby creates different dynamics. It creates new problems. It creates new obstacles. So
you're creeping me out so hard.
With
yeah,
this is an ASMR podcast.
Yeah. Seen the ones where people cut soap? It's like my favorite.
Cut what?
They cut soap.
Cut soap.
Just squares. When we're off of this, or whoever's listening, watch the cutting soap YouTube ones. There's a subreddit called Oddly Satisfying that they do it on there too. Anyways, doesn't matter.
Listen to it. Yeah, but I found with Sarah that like every obstacle was so easy before, because like at the end of the day, like who cares where we go to get a drink or where we rent a house or what car we're driving. But like now the decisions have a new set of stakes. It's like now I'm suddenly reading the reviews of the car seats, or now it really matters, because this place serves this kind of food, and they like the decisions have a different variable inserted into each.
Yeah.
They get bigger and bigger. Like, what school are they going to go to? How, are they going to be educated? It's like, have you experienced any of those in just like the first 7 weeks, like the high stakes decisions that you might be on?
I think I alluded to a little bit earlier with the whole daycare thing. Like, we actually got into like the best one basically by accident, not by accident, but we here, and especially in LA, it's like really hard to get into these ones. And I mean, most people have nannies. It's been like too hard on several fronts, but ended up getting into like this really good daycare, which is awesome. But again, it's like that thing. It's like, thank God we got into that one, because because she's in that one, then she can go to that preschool, and she can go to that regular school. And it's like, oh my God, like we already found the trail to Harvard or something, which, by the way, I'm not advocating for necessarily, but it's like that thing, that little decision based on her daycare, like, seems to be so much more loaded in terms of like how the rest of her life is going to turn out, which I think needs to also be very much taken with a grain of salt. And that's the other thing too. It's like, that's not necessarily what's going to happen. So maybe let's be cool about it. But it's like, there's a daily discussion about right now because Sawyer's, has like some stomach issues. It's like, what formula we're putting on. It's like a whole discussion. And then again, like, I love Annalisa, and I think and maybe I'm more laid back than she is, but I do think that there's a mama bear that comes out where she's trying to figure this out. So she's like buying this one, and we're researching German brands, which are like always like kind of like the best, but at the same time, they're a little harder on the digestion. So it's what's the thing? And I'm just like, just put her on she seems to be fine on the one she's on. Like, I don't know. And so it's some of these discussions, which seem simple to me, or I would love to just be able to treat as simple, that I understand aren't at this point, but it's almost like the baby's going to be fine. I don't know. There's just different depth. There is different depth to all these discussions. And yeah, I mean, again, like the late night kind of fights about stuff, like you were getting ready too loudly in the room and you're not respecting that, or what is your problem? And I don't know. And again, it's both sides of it. I think you just get super precious when things, when you're tired. So yeah, but I mean, in terms of our dynamic, I think we do try to always go back to each other at some point in the day and be like, we're in this together. I love you very much. I'm so appreciative of what you're doing, the sacrifices you're making, and vice versa. And we're in this together. And it's, at this point, I think the best thing that we can really do is frame it. It's like, it's us versus the baby, in a lot of ways. And we're just playing defense. There's two of us, there's one of her. And that's why I have so much respect for you and anyone who has more than one kid. I've talked to my boss about it several times. Michael, it's like, dude, like, I don't know how you had twins. Like, it's funny, we talked about it the other day. Like, I texted him at 11 p.m. one night when like, Sawyer was like freaking all night, and like, it'd been just a day already. And I was like, I don't know how you did this. Like, mad respect. Like, I apologize for ever silently judging you and anything. It's like, the struggle is real. I mean, it really is.
So that's an interesting thing to explore too, is like the dynamic, like, because those obstacles are so big. That was the hardest part me and Sarah ever had in our relationship, was, the first, 3 years of having kids, 2 kids under 2, basically. Like I see why people get divorced after they have a kid. It's easy to judge people when you don't have a kid that have never raised a kid, but like, you really have to be determined to, get past whatever obstacle comes in.
Yeah, no, totally. And again, I mean, we
together
and we went to therapy, before we got married. That was, we were great, but that was part of like us knowing that marriage and family raising is hard, and we wanted whatever tools we could get to, and we talked about this before, but I think all that is completely applicable to like having a baby. And I think getting back to each other and understanding like, oh, well, I didn't necessarily mean this, or it came off this way. Like, again, like the trust that we're both mean as well as we can. And yeah, sometimes we fail, but we want to do better, has been completely helpful in the whole situation, because it's hard. It's really, 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 really hard. Yeah. And being able to, go back to it and have a real discussion. And again, I think it was, I feel really lucky that Annalise and I like had a very long courtship. That was a lot of struggle, but like we had such a great baseline where like now that we are kind of introducing this interloper into our relationship, it's like we have such a good baseline. Like if we had like maybe had a more, and I'm not saying anything is typical or atypical, but I mean, I can see us, you know, in a world where we ended up getting married after a year or two or three even, and then, you know, not quite having all the history that we have now, and that being a real issue with raising kids. Because again, when you're with someone so long, you know, we were together maybe 6 years before the baby came. I mean, you have these discussions. And so that's the other thing, like, thank God we're on the same page with so many things. And there's something to speak about daycare, or whatever, talking about, you know, the dynamic changing and all the different variables that are added to a situation with a baby. It's like, if you're not on the same page about anything, like, it's just so heightened. And it's almost like someone's attacking you in a very personal way, that in which they're not agreeing with the way you're doing things or raising things or whatever. So that's been really interesting. Like, thank God we're on the same page. And like, I don't envy anyone who's like has to fight with their spouse about how they're doing things. You know what I mean? Like, because again, like you probably start taking out the daggers way faster than you would normally, because again, in your mind, the stakes are so high.
Yeah, people that haven't had to force communication when they really didn't want to are in for a rude awakening when the stakes are raised with the baby. So, like, did you guys learn any tricks through therapy? And like, people usually, and my expectation, go to therapy because they're not communicating effectively. They're not getting each other's, either not receiving or delivering messages in a way that works. So like,
right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to the previous conversation we had, where it was like, it's all about like what's behind that, like what's the insecurity behind that, what's the issue behind that, like what are you actually trying to, what's your insecurity about the way I'm doing this, or the conversation we're having, or the fact that you don't think that I'm stepping up to the table like you want me to, or I'm not stepping in fast enough, or I let you take these, you know, 3 feedings in a row. What does that say about us or my, you know, respect for you? So again, it's getting under there and being like, well, what are we actually having a conversation about? What are you upset about? Because again, like, all I want to do in this place and time is support you. Like, are literally, you know, giving our daughter sustenance. Of course, all I want to do is support you. So if there's a miscommunication, it needs to be understood that it's based clearly on a misunderstanding. And so let's actually talk. And so again, I think, I mean, that's a simplified version of it, but the whole therapy piece of it was like, the tool was coming to it by understanding Annalisa's history and what she brings to kind of everything, every interaction that she has, you know, whatever insecurities she has, whatever insecurities I have. So you can cut through a lot of bullshit and actually get through it a lot faster, you know. And again, when you can actually trust that the best intentions are at heart. We've had a couple of things where, again, I think it was like tired, it was a misunderstanding. And it was a point where like, I feel like I failed her in certain ways, but all I can tell her is like, listen, I hear you. Like you said, your piece, trust that I will do better. I'll make it better. That wasn't my intention. Let's just move on, and we can cut through it and just like get back to like the business at hand. Because again, it's so hard. Why add another element of bullshit on top, you know, of holding a grudge or, you know, having to sit there like, does he really respect me, or does she really respect me? Does she understand where I'm coming from? Does she understand that, like, you know, my intentions were good and it just didn't, you know, whatever it was. I think that there's a cheat code to just getting through it faster and then picking up with where we were, you know.
Is that what it comes down to, you think? Like trust, like she has to trust that you mean it well and you have to trust that she means it well? Like, is that the baseline, or is there some communication trick that helps get you in a right communication groove?
I think that is part of it, but actions speak louder than words. So without having the background of being of the history of ever since we've gotten married, that like, yes, her best interest has always been in my mind, and my best interest has been in her mind. So we built that trust. Mm-hmm. So at that point, it's very easy to give someone the benefit of the doubt. But at the same time, I think either way, you can't just like not fight anymore because like, oh, Tommy was really disrespecting me, but he meant well. It's like, no, you still have to talk about it and be like, where were my shortcomings, or where was my blind spot in terms of how I can support you while you're doing all this amazing stuff. You still have to have those discussions, but I'm just saying, I think you can get through it faster when there is that baseline of you know, field tested love and appreciation and respect that we've been building for 6 years. You know, some years better than others, But again, like since therapy, it's like, okay, well, this is where I'm coming from, this is where you're coming from. Let's just respect that, understand that. And again, I think there's a lot of fights that on top of that, you know, getting through a fight faster, but fights we've avoided because I know where she was coming from and I didn't take something a certain way, and vice versa with her.
Well, how about with the baby? Like, I feel like I could have been a whole lot better. And the reason I wasn't was because I didn't know what to do. So like, are you finding that Annalisa's expectations of you are that you're meeting them, or is that she making clear to you what her expectations are? Or like, as I remember telling Sarah, like, you got to tell me, I'm not as intuitive on this as I wish I was. You just got to speak up and say it to me and I will do anything.
Right. I think I've avoided that pretty successfully. Not to pat myself on the back by any means, because there's definitely a lot of things that I haven't done right or have not picked up on, or you know, times when I probably in the back of my mind knew that Annalisa was on her last leg, but was like, she's probably fine. She can take this feed or whatever. She's already doing it, so I'm not going to get. How dare I get in the way of her making that bottle and feeding that baby for the next hour and a half? Which again, it's like, you know, the dark night of the soul, where you're like, you know, you're your worst person when you're tired and just like, oh, she's fine, and you know, deep down I know she's not. But I think for the most part, what I just try to do is communicate and be like, do you need anything? What can I do?
Yeah.
You need to take this feed. Even this morning, like she was. And you know, to go back on what I just said, like this morning it was 5 a.m. She was ready to feed baby, and I was like, "Are you okay?" And she was literally like, "No, I'm about to lose it. I'm so tired." And I was like, "Let me take this one." And she again had given me so much sleep that it wasn't like I was doing any huge grand gesture. It was just I saw that, you know, she'd already woken up a couple times in the night, and I was like, "Okay, it's my turn."
Yeah.
And then I was like feeding baby in the room, and baby like grunts and like when she's eating. It's like super annoying, but our air conditioning broke, so that was the only room that was cool. So I take her away. After about 5 minutes of that, Annalise was like, "I'm going in the other room. I'm over there." And I was like, and again, it was that thing where I was like, I would have in the moment been like, I know that I shouldn't be in here, but I have to be in here. But in that moment, I'm like, you know what? She's tired, and I've been there, and. Go have fun in the guest room, you know what I mean? Anyway, so maybe that's an example of just kind of our dynamic. But again, it's for me, it's always like, what can I do? Are you okay? Like, what's going on? And I just have to trust that she's going to answer me honestly, because if we get into that game of like, is she really okay? Like, I don't want to play that guessing game. Like, and Annalisa and I have enough of history where it's like, yeah, just tell me what you want and I got you. Because again, as men, I think we are a little less intuitive, you know?
Yeah.
She is playing, you know, chess a lot of times when I'm just playing checkers, and I understand that. And it's about communicating and being like, you know, how can I help? And I think that it's always a decent question.
I'm going to ask you one more question, and then I'm going to ask you all the rapid fire questions that I asked you last time. And then one day one of us is going to re-listen to the interview and figure out how different they were.
Whatever we can get to get an extra listen out of each podcast.
Yeah, the reason we have so many downloads is because we keep listening to them over and over. Hear that? Upcoming sponsors, targeted audience of how many? The massive. So, as an authority on raising a baby over the course of the first 7 weeks of its life, what advice would you give to someone at 0 to 7 weeks as a parent?
I mean, this is honestly advice that I don't take, because like when you're in it, like you can't, but it's like, get sleep where you can, like piece it together in whatever way you can, like sleep. But again, like I don't even take that advice, because like I said earlier, like that unwind time, like there's nothing better. And again, there's nothing better I think maybe a piece of that is like, I think it's continue to connect with your partner whenever you can. Because again, I think when the bonding is all based around the baby, that's of course important and a good thing, but it's also a good reminder that, again, this is still the unit that is the most important thing. And even if it's just watching, you know, we've been watching Bachelorette together and just like stupid, reality TV. Because again, that's the only thing like you can pay attention to, because reality television, you don't have to be that invested.
Yeah. Not reading subtitles of the French Academy Award winner.
Yeah, and I know everything that's going on with, Married at First Sight, but at the same time, if I miss 10 minutes, putting baby back down or whatever, like it's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
But again, it's those bonding times, like having, a glass of wine and just, kind of talking about our days that aren't surrounding baby. Because again, I think you can get in that mode where you're like, yeah, well, once baby's like, a few months old, then we'll be able to get back to ourselves or whatever. It's like, no, because that just won't happen. If you're not completely purposeful about any of it, like 5 years are going to pass, and then you're going to be like, all we're really talking about are these kids. I guess, again, I make very grand statements on this podcast, and I don't know what the hell I'm talking about, but again, I'll say even the first 7 weeks, like it's like I found it very important and crucial, to do that. We have a date night, our first date night scheduled. Her mom's coming to take care of the baby, so we're gonna, just go have a glass of wine together. That's pretend like we don't have a kid for an hour. It's
gonna piss you off so much when your friends next door that just have a baby and they've got like aunts and uncles and grandparents and sisters and brothers that all live within like 3 miles. And they're like, yeah, we'll take the baby. You guys go have fun. Yeah. Meanwhile, you're looking for $30 an hour babysitters in LA that, have their SAG card and they're pretending to be babysitters. Yeah.
I played a babysitter on a television.
Oh, man. Down in Culver City, I was the babysitter. Okay. So is Culver City still like where they do all the porn?
They do porn everywhere, Tyler.
Okay. The joke didn't land as much. I thought Culver City was where they did porn.
I think you're talking more about like the valley, like the San Fernando Valley is like where it's at. Where it's at is I do a fist where it's at.
That's where
So I hear, I don't know, like it's very strange. Like Vivid Video, which is like a big, or it used to be like a big porn brand, is right next to like NBC Universal, and it's like this kind of janky building, and I'm like, that's weird, but whatever. It's the valley. Things get weird in the valley, bro.
Things get weird in the valley. All right, so here's a couple questions. If you were to title a book about your first 7 weeks of parenthood, what would the title of the book be?
What have I done? What have
now what television or film or movie dad do you resonate with?
I think before I said that I like the Taylor relationship, which is true, Coach Taylor and his wife. But in terms of a dad that I relate to, it's like, I don't know, 3 men and a baby. It's like they're kind of all like bumbling idiots. They're like, I don't know what to do. It's like me, I'm like, like, I literally, I'm sure it could be a scene in whenever they reboot that thing. A baby going through 4 diapers in a matter of 2 seconds. That was the thing that was so funny, going back to our awesome diaper conversation, which was, I said 3 a day, and it ended up being like 4 in 22 seconds.
You use one diaper to like fold up the other diaper?
Yeah, and it's still like
coming out the sides.
It's just a mess. No, but then that diaper, Jeannie, like you end up changing it like every day and a half. I'm like, this baby's way too small to be causing this much chaos and damage. Yeah. Anyways,
and it's growing like crazy and still defecates like it's weight every day.
I know.
All right, so billboard question. If you could give a piece of advice to all new dads that fits on a billboard, what would you put?
I would literally just, kind of what I was saying earlier. I think, I'm not saying I'm that successful.
It's got to fit on a billboard, Tommy. It's got to fit on.
I'm explaining my thought process, but the billboard, it's just keep asking how you can be helpful. Yeah. To be of service is something that I also talked about in our last podcast, which is very true. Like, the main attraction is your wife and your baby, especially if she's breastfeeding. There's just something about the connection between those two that like you just aren't ever gonna like get in the way of at this point. Like that baby wants her mom at certain times, and it's the most adorable thing. How much more space do I have on this billboard?
I have a Q&A on the billboard. I'm going to give you the question. You give me the answer. If I take your advice and my wife says, stop asking me what to do and just do it.
Oh, then just do it.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for clearing that up for me.
Go do laundry. Go clean whatever bottles are in the sink, because there's going to be 10 bottles in the sink. You know, go take the dog out. Go do some lawn work. Like, just be active. Like, I don't know.
Nice.
That's my whole thing. I'm like, at least be proactive. Like, if you're doing the wrong thing, at least you're doing it proactively. Don't be caught on the couch letting your wife be doing a bunch of stuff on her own. That's just not being a good partner.
Most practical, damn good advice for everybody, anybody that's a partner, anybody that's a parent. So nice. So what gift would you give to every new dad?
Oh my God, like a time machine sleep chamber where you could like get a solid 8 hours every night and still be up at when you need to be up. I mean, I'm serious. Like the struggle's real. And again, I keep making jokes like I really need sleep, which I do, but like, I mean, like I was telling you earlier, like I was literally not making sense in a couple meetings. like you need some sleep. Get sleep. So yeah, I would, any way I could hook them up with some sort of sleep device, I'd be all about it.
This will be the last question that I keep the recorder on, and I've never asked it. So in the event that this is like a journal entry for your first 7 months, and it's one that Sawyer will get to read, you know, when she's 85 and goes, oh God, here's my dad's journal. What are some things that you'd like for her to read?
I mean, I hope she knows that even at this age, how much we kind of loved her and how much like light she brought into our hearts, even with just like the smallest smile. And I think that the power that is, I think, you know, already you know, yeah, I think it's an important, I think it's just so interesting. And I think, you know, you can only kind of know it when you're a parent, but kind of, and I'm not even saying I'm all the way there yet, because again, I do resent her for being such a blob at sometimes, but like, even just the idea of like, she really at this point could do no wrong in my heart, and that, you know, whatever fights we get into down the way, or if, you know, dad died too early and wasn't able to tell you enough times, like just the unconditional love I have in my heart for that little kid, and how, you know, hopeful I am for her life, but also without expectation. Like she can, like, I want her to live her best life, but also I want her to do it on her terms. And again, like I'm thinking all these things as I'm staring into her eyes, and she's like literally like can see a foot in front of her and like ceiling fans. Like she's got nothing for me, and yet I'm like, you're the best thing that ever happened to me. Don't you feel the same way about me? And she's like, I don't. Who's this guy? Where's my mom? But yeah, I think there's something to say about that thing, and I don't know if it's a cliche or what, but just kind of the way your heart kind of builds in weird ways. And again, the thing is, like, I think what I was expecting, maybe it's a little off topic, but I like to talk about it, or I feel like talking about it, so you just shut up and listen, is this idea that like you have a kid and then your heart just grows. It's like, oh, okay, I love it so much, which may or may not have been the case. I don't remember anymore. It was so long ago. I'm just kidding. It was 7 weeks ago. But the point is, like, at that point, like, it's just been growing and growing and growing. So I don't know. I had this idea in my head where it's like, oh, she's born, and then boom, and I love her so much. But it's like every day is like a little bit more. And it is that thing I was talking about where it's like just that smile. Like I got so much mileage out of that smile. And then when she coos, or when she's just kind of like gives me like that kind of like movie star like wink by accident, I'm like, this is the coolest kid ever. Like, this kid's so cool. And I'm also, by the way, like, so that parent where like I'm trying to like check myself, and I'm like, my sister comes and sees her, and my sister's, of course, Yasmin's like so nice. Oh my God, you're this beautiful baby. But I'm just kind of like, baby's cool, right? It's not just me, right? Because I also understand that, you know, outside of my nieces and nephews and maybe close friends' kids, like, I'm like, your kid's a fucking kid. I don't really care. I got nothing for you. Sure, it's cute. I don't know. It looks like every other baby.
It's gonna turn out to be an asshole just like you.
Exactly. No, but anyways, just to say, like, I'm trying to check myself, but I'm like, this kid's so cool. Like, and I like the fact that she has an angry streak, and I think she's gonna it's gonna be a really cool aspect of her personality. And you know, I like the fact that I can kind of see her thinking about things already. And like, you know, again, like you way read into these things. I'm like, she's going to be so smart. because she does this when she looks at the wall. But I mean, she is going to be smart. She looks like this at a wall.
All right, last question. Do you think she'll love you as much as you love her? Do you think she can? Does she have the capacity? Does a parent and a child in that dynamic, does the child have the capacity to love their parent as much as their parent loves them back?
You know what? I'll say this about it, because I think it's different. I think of it's like maybe an apples and oranges conversation, because I know the love I have for my parents and the devastation that I would feel if anything happened to either one of them, or the devastation that I would feel if I somehow was told by either one of them that I wasn't making them proud, or that they didn't love me, or any of those things. Like that's a very unique dynamic as a child. Like you're always your parents' children, and so that dynamic is its own way. And so that's its own thing. But again, if you can get leveled by your parent, like even if you don't like your parent, they can level you with a few words. And it's just different on the other side of it, being a parent, because I see it now as like, it's just different. It feels different. Like your heart fills up differently. I think, as a parent, like holding your child and knowing, like, even when, Sawyer's walking down the aisle when she gets married, or is doing whatever she's doing. She doesn't have to get married if she doesn't want to, but whatever she's doing when she's older, it's just like, I was there when you were first born. I wiped your mouth when you were drooling, and just, again, like the heart beats in a different way almost. And like, there's like an overflow of just like emotion at very random moments. So in that respect, I'm like, Sawyer won't know that kind of love. But at the same time, like the attachment love that children feel is also something that is almost incomparable to any other kind of love you have in your life, which is also very different than the love that I share for Annalisa. It's a different kind of respect, and it's created in a different way, So I don't know. Again, all these loves I think are comparable in their level of passion, but at the same time, like you can't compare a parent and child love. And I'm just feel so blessed and lucky that I can actually see it from both sides now, And again, like I always will, asterisk this and preface it with like, look, it's very early stages, and I'm sure it just gets bigger and bigger, because it has gotten bigger and bigger, I would assume. At the same time, I think that, okay, Annalisa just texted me, there's a huge leak with the AC system, so that's great. But, I do think that there is, they're different. They're different, but I would say if I had to measure them at this point, I think I will always tell Sawyer that she loves me more than I love her, more than she loves me. It's just the way it goes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think, by the way, my job for the rest of her life is to make her feel that I love her more than she loves me. I'm happy to make it a competition.
Love it, man. Well, it sounds like you got household stuff to take care of.
Yeah. Sorry, but
no, I'd be glad to catch up with you more and talk about the new house and more personal. Not that talking about your baby isn't personal stuff, but just catching up
right
and stuff. So
totally, man. Yeah.
Talk to you for a little while then, man. I miss you, brother.
I miss you too. There's not a day that goes by I don't think about you guys and miss you. But as you know, we're kind of in the thick of it. So I figure you understand. But at the same time, know that my heart is in the right place in terms of, thinking about you guys.
Yeah.
That's Annalisa. I gotta go.
All right. Pick up and tell her to say hi to me.
I will not, 'cause she's gonna be pissed about this leak.
All right. Love you, brother.
I'll talk to you later.